Police stalking and community policing. The involvement of society at large in police stalking operations may also differ according to context. In some countries, the privacy violation involved in sharing information about fellow citizens is taken seriously by the police. As a consequence, the stalking is mainly carried out by a mix of uniformed and plainclothes police. In other countries, limited segments of the local community may be involved. For example, through the employment of other emergency services in the stalking patrols, fire engines and ambulances, cooperation with shopping mall security guards. These may be asked to behave in an intimidating way towards a stalking victim, or even services providers more broadly, supermarkets, restaurants, and, where applicable, hotels. An advantage for the police is that people in low-income jobs will often feel gratified when asked to help the police with something, and without thinking about the judicial and human rights aspect will gladly make some extra noise in their office or restaurant for the good cause until the stalking victim feels so intimidated that he or she moves somewhere else. The near universal knee-jerk preparedness among large parts of the general population in many countries to do anything the police asks without considering the legal aspects of these actions, that is, being accessory to an act of stalking, is a sad but very prominent feature of many so-called liberal societies today. In police stalking involving the society at large, each act of intimidation may be much less hurtful than what is commonly seen in a bullying situation. The whole point is to induce paranoia by repeating seemingly commonplace incidents endlessly, in what becomes a familiar pattern, at least to the stalking victim. For example, in addition to making deliberate noise, people at shops may be instructed to greet the stalking victim in particular ways, for example by compulsively using something like a "have a nice day" greeting, which is very common but surely not universal in most languages. There may be bogus emergency calls to places visited by the stalking victim with fire engines or ambulances showing up where the stalking victim is for no good reason. An alarm goes off each time the stalking victim enters a shopping center. This is caused by interaction between the tracking device hidden on the stalking victim's belongings and the electronic theft protection system of the shop. A clearly arranged succession of cars with blinking lights will line the streets wherever he or she goes. These are plausible incidents, just mildly out of the ordinary, except that in a police stalking setting, on every corner there is a little oddity greeting the stalking victim. In this way, despite the seemingly innocuous and everyday character of each individual act of intimidation, the cumulative effect is bigger than in traditional bullying given the far greater scale of involvement. The most depraved variants of police stalking involve large sections of a local community, who may take part in the stalking patrols, assist the police in disturbing the stalking victim with noise in their local neighborhood, such as driving aggressively around the victim, or receive instructions to address the stalking victim in particular ways. At least one EU member country is known to practice this most totalitarian variant of police stalking, which conceptually seems somewhat related to social isolation methods reported from communist East Germany. Another disturbing aspect of many police stalking operations are the crude attempts by the police to signal stigmatization and marginalization by deliberately parading disproportionate numbers of physically and mentally handicapped people in street theater designed to humiliate the stalking victim. It makes sense to discuss these particular variants of widespread community-based police stalking as possible crimes against humanity, not for what they do towards the stalking victim, but for the deliberate and disproportionate employment by the police of children and other legal minors as well as the handicapped. Not only are stigmas relating to physical handicaps reproduced, children are socialized into believing bullying of socially marginal targets is acceptable and that the police has the right to administer extrajudicial punishment in the most totalitarian fashion imaginable. Often these different elements are combined so that the general public may cooperate with the police in what they see as comparatively soft bullying during daytime, joining the police in chasing the stalking victim with their cars, for example, whereas the more physical mistreatment, chiefly sleep deprivation, is carried out by the police themselves at night in more secretive precision hits directed at the private home of the stalking victim. Normally, it is probably these nocturnal disturbances done by police away from the gaze of the public that are instrumental in putting the stalking victim under unbearable pressure and force him or her to move. But the police are happy to keep these dirtiest activities in the dark and let the general public believe it is their noble cooperation with the police in their shops and restaurants that pushes the stalking victim around. The use of sleep deprivation by the police in stalking operations is generally consonant with the leave no marks characteristic of torture in democratic states identified by Darius Rejali.